August 15th, 1977. A radio telescope in Ohio is scanning the sky, the way it does every night, searching for something it was never supposed to find. A signal arrives. It lasts exactly 72 seconds. It comes from deep space. And then, it stops forever. The astronomer who discovered it circled the data and wrote just one word in the margin. 47 years later, no one has explained what sent it. To understand why the WOW signal matters, you first have to understand what humanity was doing in the summer of 1977. We were listening, not with our ears, but with radio telescopes. Enormous dishes pointed at the sky, tuned to specific frequencies, waiting for a pattern that did not belong to nature. The project was called SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. The idea was simple. If an intelligent civilization somewhere in the universe wanted to announce itself, radio waves would be the logical choice. They travel at the speed of light. They pass through space almost undisturbed, and they are cheap to generate. The question was not whether we should be listening. The question was which frequency to listen on. In 1959, two physicists named Giuseppe Cocconi and Philip Morrison published a paper that changed the search forever. They argued that any intelligent civilization would likely broadcast on a frequency of 1,420 megahertz, the natural emission frequency of hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. It was a cosmic common language, a universal channel. And so, the telescopes were tuned. The Big Ear Telescope at Ohio State University was, by most measures, unremarkable. It was not the biggest, it was not the most advanced, but it was one of the most dedicated. Since 1973, it had been methodically sweeping the sky as part of a long-running city survey. Night after night, frequency after frequency. The data was printed on sheets of paper covered in numbers and letters, a code representing the intensity of radio signals arriving from different parts of the sky. Most of the printouts were noise, background radiation, the hum of the cosmos going about its business. But on the morning of August 15th, 1977, a volunteer astronomer named Jerry Ehman sat down to review the previous night's data, and something stopped him cold. There, among the usual noise, was a sequence of characters, 6EQUJ5. In the code used by Big Ear, letters represented signal intensities too high for single digits. The letter U represented an intensity of 30. The letter Q represented 27. The number 6 at the start and 5 at the end showed the signal building, then fading. This was not noise. This was a narrowband signal, focused and precise, appearing at almost exactly 1,420 megahertz, the hydrogen frequency. Eamon stared at the printout. Then he picked up a red pen, circled the sequence, and wrote the only word that seemed appropriate: WOW. What made the WOW signal so extraordinary was not just its intensity, though that alone was remarkable. It was 30 times louder than the background noise of space. What made it extraordinary was how perfectly it fit the profile of what scientists had predicted an alien transmission would look like. The Big Ear Telescope did not move. It was fixed in place. The Earth rotated beneath it, which meant the telescope swept slowly across the sky over time. Any radio source would appear in the telescope's field of view, reach peak intensity, then fade as the Earth's rotation carried the telescope away. For a source at that distance, this process takes exactly 72 seconds. The WOW signal lasted exactly 72 seconds, with a rise and fall that matched a point source in space almost perfectly. It came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. Specifically, from a region with no known stars, no planets, and no natural radio sources that could explain the transmission. It was on the hydrogen frequency. It appeared once. It was gone. Jerry Amon later said he was astonished. He thought, could this be what we have been looking for? Could this be an extraterrestrial radio signal? But science demands more than astonishment. It demands repetition. And that is where the story takes a darker turn. After Jerry Amon's discovery, astronomers did what scientists do. They pointed every available telescope back at the same patch of sky. They waited and waited. Nothing. Over the following weeks and months, Big Ear returned to that region of space more than 50 times. Other telescopes joined the search. The signal was never detected again, not once, not even a whisper. Without a second detection, astronomers could not verify the signal's origin, could not rule out interference, could not confirm what they were dealing with. Jerry Amon himself grew cautious. He told reporters he was not ready to say that we had found evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence, but he also never stopped wondering. The signal was real, the data was unambiguous, but without repetition, without confirmation, it remained officially unexplained. Not alien, but not alien either. It occupied a category that science is deeply uncomfortable with, genuinely unknown. In the decades since 1977, scientists have offered many explanations for the WOW signal. None of them have fully stuck. Some researchers propose the signal could have come from a rotating pulsar or a rare magnetar, objects capable of emitting powerful bursts of radio energy. But pulsars emit across much broader frequency ranges, and no known astrophysical phenomenon in that region of sky matches the precise profile of the WOW signal. Others suggested the signal was reflected radio frequency interference from Earth. Radio waves from our own satellites or transmitters could theoretically bounce off space debris and return to a telescope. But the narrow frequency, the direction, and the timing do not match this explanation either. In 2017, a researcher named Antonio Paris proposed that the signal might have come from a hydrogen cloud surrounding a comet passing through that region of sky in 1977. The claim received significant media attention, but the hypothesis was quickly challenged. Other astronomers pointed out that the comets in question do not produce narrowband signals, and Big Ear had observed those coordinates many times before and after without detecting a similar signal. The comet theory did not survive scrutiny, and then there is the theory that no scientist will fully endorse, and the one that no scientist has been able to definitively disprove. The WOW signal matches almost every characteristic that researchers at the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence had predicted for a deliberate transmission from an intelligent source. The frequency, the duration, the origin point, the fact that it is never repeated is consistent with a directed beam that swept past Earth once and moved on. Jerry Amon never claimed it was aliens, but until his death in 2020, he maintained the same position he held since 1977. The most likely origin of the signal was of an extraterrestrial intelligence. He was simply never able to prove it. There is a philosophical dimension to the WOW signal that goes beyond radio frequencies and telescope data. The universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old. Our galaxy alone contains at least 400 billion stars. Scientists estimate there could be hundreds of millions of potentially habitable planets in the Milky Way. And yet, in over 50 years of listening, we have heard nothing. Silence. Except possibly once. The WOW signal is a strange kind of ghost. It was real enough to be recorded, compelling enough to be studied, and mysterious enough that the world's leading astronomers cannot agree on what it was. And it lasted exactly as long as we would have expected a transmission from deep space to last. 72 seconds of something. And then 47 years of silence. Maybe it was a comet we have never properly characterized, some exotic natural phenomenon we do not yet understand, or interference from a source we have not identified. Or maybe, just maybe, on one August night in 1977, a signal crossed 200 trillion miles of empty space, passed through the atmosphere of a small blue planet, and was captured by a fixed telescope in Ohio. And the only being in the cosmos who noticed it was a volunteer astronomer drinking coffee at 3 in the morning, who circled it with a red pen and wrote, "Wow." The Big Ear telescope was demolished in 1997 to make way for a golf course. The original printout with Jerry Amon's handwritten annotation is preserved at Ohio State University, and the coordinates in Sagittarius, where the signal originated, remain silent to this day. SETI continues. More powerful telescopes, more sensitive equipment, smarter software. But the WOW signal remains, more than 4 decades later, the strongest candidate for extraterrestrial contact ever recorded. It was never explained. It was never repeated. It has never been forgotten. If you want to know what else we have heard from the silence of space, there is a lot more where this came from. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.